Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn.
It has been a while since I have done a video on how to add inserts to a traveler's notebook. I thought I would update this since I am using my inserts and putting them into my traveler's notebook in a slightly different way. Now, it's not anything possibly new to anyone, but it was sort of a revelation for me, so I thought I would share it. And I'm going to show you how to add 5 inserts into a traveler's notebook with only 1 elastic and some accessories. If you go ahead and you watch this all the way to the end and you feel like, oh, you know, I already really knew all of this stuff, then please, by all means, add to the comments down below something new, something that works for you or what doesn't. Okay, so let's get started. This is my limited edition Blue Traveler's Notebook. So if you're really new to Traveler's Notebook, basically it's a piece of leather that has a string running through it, and you place these inserts on. They're basically notebooks. It took me a long time to just not say they were notebooks anymore. I was like, but they're a notebook. They call them inserts because you insert them in on one elastic. It also comes with a bookmark and an elastic closure. When you get this little guy, you end up getting it with one insert. And basically what they do is they find the center, and you can find the center by looking for the staples. And this is a Midori brand or a Traveler's Notebook brand insert. They are all 64 pages, the 5 that I will be using today, because I wanted you to have some kind of idea about how 5 notebooks of the same amount of pages would look in here. So you find the center, and you basically have a bottom string and a top string, and you place the notebook in between the bottom and the top string. Okay, and then it's in there. It's held together by the string, and it's not going to fall out. So that is method 1 to putting in an insert. And I have numbered these, and I know that's sort of elementary, but the first time I watched somebody do this, it was Carrie Harling. It was like she was doing magic, and I was like, who are you, Houdini? So I thought it might be a little simpler if I numbered them so you could kind of see where the notebooks go. So I'm going to put 2 notebooks in here. And again, you can find the center of these notebooks. And this is called piggybacking, where you take the back of the first notebook and the front of the second notebook and put them together. And you take your elastic, and this is just elastic you can get from Walmart in the sewing section is where you're going to find this, or Joann's and Hobby Lobby tend to have elastic, and I like to get a really thin elastic, like a 1mm for piggybacking these notebooks so that it's very, very thin. Okay, so those are piggybacked together. And you do the same thing. Here's the bottom string and the top string. And you go ahead and you place them in the center. Sometimes I pull them apart so that string can fall in there. And that is how you put 2 notebooks. And that's how that looks. So we have book 1, book 2, and book 3. Now you have to imagine that this is a lined notebook. This one's a blank one, and this one's a grid. And this is the order that you want them in. So I'm going to put this notebook first, and this is my last, and this is the one that's going to go in the center. So this one will go in last. Okay, and this time I'm going to piggyback them with the back of this front insert and the front of this back insert. I just like that more than putting them in the center. I feel like they lay flatter, in my opinion, but that might be preference. And you're going to go ahead and put that in between the bottom and the top string in the center. And then you're going to take your second notebook, find the center, pull up that top elastic, and put it in the middle. Now, a lot of times I like to take the first insert in the last insert and pull them apart a little so that that middle insert will fall just so. And that is how you get 3 in here, and that is what that looks like. And they have this thing called overhang, right? So overhang is when your notebooks stick out of your traveler's notebook like this, and you can see the overhang. There is no overhang with 3 notebooks. There is a little bit of adjusting that has to happen, but you're good. No overhang. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and put in 4 inserts, and I'm going to show you the stress that comes with adding 4 inserts into a traveler's notebook. Now, normally you have 1 string in a traveler's notebook traditionally, but then, you know, the Foxy Fix came along and the Chic Sparrow came along, and they added 3 strings and then 6 strings, and some have 8 strings, and each insert can go on its own string, and you don't really have the problem of having to piggyback like you do with the traveler's notebook with the original 1 string. And I'm going to tell you why it's such an issue, or actually I'm going to show you why it's such an issue to have all of these notebooks on 1 string. Okay, so the same thing. My notebook 1 is going to go first, and my notebook 4. Everything in the center goes in last. So piggybacking book 1 and 4 together in between the bottom and the top string. Then we're going to use another string to show you how people traditionally put in 4 notebooks. And again, this is not how I do mine, which is coming up right after this. Okay. Picking up that top string and putting these in the center. Now you have 4 notebooks, and a lot of times I like to pull the front, and I like to pull the 2 on the left and the 2 on the right apart so that those middle books just sit just so. And there you go. Now, this gives you a little bit of overhang. It's not a crazy amount, but it's definitely there. Sometimes the more you use these books, they will settle down a little bit, and the overhang is really like almost invisible. So that is how people normally put 4 notebooks in. Here's the problem that I found with putting 4 notebooks into a traveler's notebook with only 1 string. Let's say that you're, you know, opening and looking in this one, and then you're opening and looking in this one, and then the 3rd one, and then the 4th one, and then you want to close this baby up. That's what happens. They just kind of like pop out, and there's a lot of maneuvering that has to happen and a lot of pulling around, and that just becomes tiresome, especially when you just want to be on the go and move around and just get things done, and you have to worry about this. So let me show you how 5 notebooks fit in here in 1 string. Okay, so again, we're going to start with our first notebook and our last notebook, and everything in the center is going to go in last. And then you do the same thing. You're going to put these back in here, and you're going to say, okay, my first notebook and my last notebook go in first, and then the one in the center goes in last. Pulling up that top string. And then we have our 3rd notebook, which is actually our 5th notebook that's going in here. Just put that on the center. Now again, you're going to have to maneuver these by pulling the 2 inserts on the left side and the right side apart and kind of pushing that 3rd notebook down. It's only going to go so far down because there's a lot in here, and that is how 5 notebooks looks. It's pretty crazy with a lot of overhang. Okay, so my method of putting 5 notebooks in here is about trying to fit the most into your traveler's notebook with the least amount of overhang possible, as well as comfort. Okay, so let me show you how I do that. So I have some accessories to help me get 5 inserts into my traveler's notebook with 1 string and 1 elastic. And here are some options for you. Now the first option is this insert by Midori, which is the 004 insert, and it comes with these little pockets, and it also comes with another pocket, but I use that in another traveler's notebook. And you can definitely use these in here for this method. Now I'm going to say that this is a last resort because you do have to order these on Amazon or somewhere else. I know if you're like me, you want to go out and pick this stuff up immediately and try it out. So here are some options if that's what you want to do. I ended up getting these. These are card holders from Office Depot. They were pretty expensive in my opinion. They were like $6 to $8. I will put a link down below, and there weren't very many in there. I think there was only like a count of 20, and they're kind of wrinkly. Do you see that? And I don't know. I'm not in love with them, and that's why I would totally use it for a project like this because you're just going to cut them anyway. And then I also have a Target dollar spot pocket. I love these pockets. You can only really find them around where I live during the beginning of the school year, which is a bummer, but sometimes, you know, they might have them lingering around. I have no idea, so it's worth a shot at trying to find them. And I think that this is what I'm actually going to be using today. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and roll my traveler's notebook a little bit because I like when the edges roll around my inserts and they kind of hug them just so. It makes me very happy. And it's harder to roll this the way I like once the pockets are on there. So I'm just going to give it a good roll like this. And so you see how it's kind of like perfectly round when the inserts are in there. It's just going to hug them really nicely. And I like the way that looks. So I have 2 Target dollar spot pockets here. Make sure that they're both upright. Now, if you look here, you actually can put these in at that height if you want to, but the taller it is, the more stiff it's going to be in this area. So if I cut it down, then it's going to be less stiff. Does that make sense? And I want the least amount and still to be able to use this pocket. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and cut these down about a third of the way, I'm going to say. See how that looks. And again, you can cut them however you wish. All right, so the next step is to cut the outside of this guy to make an opening for our pocket, because what we're trying to do is recreate this Midori pocket here. And you certainly can round it if you want to. I personally I'm just going to square it off. I'm not really going to worry about it too much. And I also like, it's really hard, you know, to open this. So I kind of like to have a little bit of a space like this. Let me show you. Just going to take it in a little bit. Okay, and so then you can just kind of like stick your finger in there and it's easier to open. You know what I'm saying? So, okay, so you want to get it as close to the edge as you possibly can because you're going to put an insert back here. And if you put it too high up, your insert is going to stick out of your notebook. Okay, so there is this side. Now this side, you're going to cut on the opposite side. Instead of cutting it over here, you're going to cut it over here. And this is why. We are going to slip these notebooks into these little pockets. Okay, and we want them to fit in like this so that when they open up, they stay inside of the notebook. If I were to, you know, cut it on how I cut it here on this side, it would slip in like this and it would come outside of our notebook. And maybe that's something you don't mind and that's what you want, and that's perfectly fine. But I'm thinking more about the fact that when I don't have a table or a flat surface to write on and I'm writing on my lap out in the wilderness or wherever, I don't want to open my notebook and have to write on this side. But that's just, you know, my personal opinion. Okay, so we're gonna cut on this side. You definitely have some space in here to move it a little bit up and a little bit in if you want to. I just prefer to put it on the very, very edge. Now know that if you stick these on here and you peel them off, it's probably gonna leave like a balding spot where it pulls off a layer of the leather in here. So that again is something else you have to think about. Now these aren't too bad that you still can't roll them occasionally. It's just, it does make it a little more stiff here. And that's why personally, a lot of the times I only like to put it on the back and not the front, because I see and I feel and I touch the front the most. And so, you know, again, personal preference. So here's how I put 5 inserts into my one-stringed traveler's notebook with some accessories and one string. My first notebook, by opening this up, and you see how it's easier just to like pull, and then now that you've cut it, because when it was even, it's like, where the heck is that end? So I just find that it's simple that way, but you do you. Okay, so here's how that lays in there. And this is how 4 inserts looks. And there is no overhang. And I love this because if you want to, you can go ahead and write on it just like this. And the hump isn't too bad. It just depends on, you know, how you're feeling. Or you can go ahead and take it out because it's not on a string. It's very easy to take out, and you can just write on a flat surface. If you are out and about and you don't have a table and you want to take this out because you don't like the hump, you can certainly just, you know, open your center book and put it in there and write like this, and then take it out and move it back. One of the problems I have with all of my notebooks being on string is that sometimes you do want to take out a notebook and write on it or draw in it, and it becomes a hassle to do that because you need more of a flat surface. And the hassle becomes that you have to take all of the strings off and unconnect all of the books, and it drives me crazy. So if you have a notebook that you know that you like to take out a lot, and I don't know, maybe you're stamping in or whatever, then that could be this notebook that's just kind of hooked on here by a sticky pocket. And then here is the 5th notebook. And that is how 5 notebooks look in here. Now you can see that the overhang is minimal. There's a little bit of overhang, but not a crazy amount. This is how much overhang we were getting almost with 4 notebooks on the same string. And the best part about this is you don't have that situation where all the notebooks, when you're flipping around, get really crazy. It's just a slight push down and you're good to go. Unlike before when I really had to like pull, you know, the first 2 notebooks out and push this down and make sure that everything sits just so. This one just lays flatter and works for me. Again, it might be personal preference, but I'm really loving how 5 notebooks works this way. Now, not all of your inserts are going to be this thick. Sometimes, you know, you might have half the thickness of an insert. Some might be thicker. It just depends on, you know, what you're working with. Now, you might actually not want a notebook in the front and you just think 4 is great and you can't handle how 4 looks on the one string because of the situation I already showed you. You can certainly put the 4th notebook in the back. So here is 1, 2, 3, and then 4, especially if you don't want to put that pocket in the front here, because again, I like that bendability of the leather and I like to be able to curl it around the inserts. you can just go with 4 and then have this notebook in the back. I will tell you that one situation I do find when you have 4 notebooks in here is that when you're writing on this first notebook, like let's say you're writing on page 1, there's quite a bit of a hump, so you feel like you're kind of writing down at an angle. I don't like that, so what I end up doing usually is I take that 4th notebook, especially if I'm writing on the front one, and I just put it underneath here to make this a more level surface. Do you know what I mean? And then when I'm writing in the back notebook, over here, I tend to take that notebook to the back and help it make a more level surface to write on. And that's how I kind of get rid of that situation. Anyway, this is what I've been using and it's been working really great for me. And this is how I've been adding in 4 inserts into a traveler's notebook with 1 string in it. And I really love the 1 string because I like the way the books sit. There's something about having 4 strings or more in a traveler's notebook and the way they kind of like, you know, they have like this waterfall effect, sort of like this, that I don't really care for. And so I tend to like them all to sit on top of each other like that and look really beautiful. Okay, so that is how I add 4 inserts and sometimes 5 into a traveler's notebook with 1 string. If you have a different method that I didn't mention in this video, please leave it down below. If you have a video you'd like to share with everyone, also leave a link for that down below. If you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you soon.
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn.